I think that especially in the podcast space too, social media and access to social media, like putting an episode out and then being able to read people's responses or hearing what they feel about it, if this resonated with them, if this didn't resonate with them, is a really cool aspect to it also, because that's when you're thinking, when you're speaking and you're like, is anybody listening to this? Is this helping anyone? Am I sharing, like, am I making anyone laugh? And just get the feedback of people being like, that was really funny, or we really like that, or we didn't know that about you. It's cool. It's the same kind of thing. Like, you know, your podcast is so incredible. You speak to these incredible people, and we speak to incredible people as well. Like, we're speaking to you right now, but this is like, it's another access where not only do you get to access these amazing people, but you get to access the people at home too, which is, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times when you're talking on the podcast, or at least for me, the stuff that I worry about that I said, and not in a way that's like I said something wrong, but like being more honest than usual. Like there were episodes where we talked about my anxiety or just like other things like that, and I'm like, oh, should I put that out there? And then family things, mental health, and we put it out there, and the response is so overwhelming compared to like a normal episode that makes you appreciate it even more.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because we all have that it's such a very human fear to think, oh, if I expose this vulnerable part of myself, people will lean back and go. But really, when you open up about something, everyone leans in and says, oh, you too? And it's such a wild thing that we learn that lesson. We have to learn that lesson over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think there's something so rad about this space because, to your point, whether you're laughing hysterically, having a super silly conversation, or you're getting into something like a topic that surrounds mental health or talking about family dynamics, which for so many people can be so difficult, you can find more of yourself in every arena. And out in the world, we're only encouraged to share the highlight reels and the happy stuff. And it's like, maybe I learned the most about myself through this joyful experience, or maybe I learned so much about myself through this experience that required my own self-interrogation or my own vulnerability with other people. And I don't know, I think there's something that lets us, both as hosts, the interviewers, the interviewees, and our audiences, I think this space of true conversation lets us all be so much more ourselves. I'm very enamored with it. I'm like, God, I sound like I'm writing a love letter. What's wrong with me?
I love your passion for it. What has the feedback been like for you?
It's been so cool. You know, some of the things that are really tremendously meaningful to me are when somebody says, you and this guest articulated a conversation about a subject, and I've been trying to find the words, and I shared this with my family. My family and I don't see eye to eye on politics or on whatever the cultural conversation might be. And this helped. This was a gateway for us. I asked my parents to listen to this with me, or I sent this to my sister, and then we had a great conversation. That stuff has been so... I don't know what the word for this feeling is, but I realize I need to come up with it because you guys can see me and other people probably can't. But it like stops me in my tracks. It makes me just feel like I'm really tapping into, my best purpose. Like I'm able to do some good, and that feels very cool. And to have moments that are that kind of profound feeling, and then also, have somebody say, oh, I was having the roughest week and I listened to you interview this person and I just laughed for an hour. I'm like, I love this.
It's just the best feeling.
It really is. It really is. We want to talk about your television journey as well, because we were watching the little teaser trailer for Good Sam, and I'm just curious because you've been in this space, you've done the television drama series, and I'm sure you've been offered tons of different television drama series down the line. What drew you to Good Sam, and specifically like kind of this role?
Oh man, it's just so good. The show is just so good. It's actually so good I was kind of pissed about it because network TV is so amazing because you get to connect with such a big audience, and it's really tough because the schedules are insane and you never get to live where your family lives. And for a person like me who just like, I need to hug my people, FaceTime is fine for a while, but I don't know. I'm like a puppy. I just want to snuggle. The distance can be really hard. And I spent so long on location that for a while I thought, I'm really going to lean into doing these movies that I care about, which is also weird because now so many things are coming out at the same time.
Right.
False Positive's coming out and Good Sam launched its trailer. And I'm like, whoa, all of this work we've been doing behind the scenes is like hitting the mainstream. But I was really kind of debating what I wanted to do. I worked on this great show on Netflix called Easy with this badass director, Joe Swanberg. And Joe and I started talking about writing something after he took a break to be with his family. And I was all in on that. I was like, yeah, let's just like write another cool Netflix show. We'll do 6 episodes and then it'll be over forever. What an experiment that will be for me. And then an agent who represents writers that I really trust, because I've met with him on a bunch of stuff and he's sourced some really good material for me to consider producing. And he said, I have this script you have to read. And I was like, oh, okay, what is it? You know, and where do you see it? And when should we produce it? And he was like, no, for you to act in. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Is it an indie movie? Yeah. Like, what is it? And he was like, no, it's going to be a network drama. And I was like, dude, come on. And he was like, just read it. And I read it. And I remember just being like, oh shit, this is my show. Like, I know that this is my show. And it's tongue in cheek to say the oh shit part, because honestly, I'm so in love with it that I was like, well, obviously we're doing this. But it is funny because I'm like, well, here I go. I'm going on location again. But it's just a phenomenal piece of writing. Katie Wesh is an incredible writer. And I don't want to be like, part of me thinking about this sentence makes me want to barf because it's so cliche at this point, but to be like, it's just so amazing to be written by a woman, but really it is. Yeah. The whole thing is just different. And it's like every single one of my favorite kinds of shows wrapped into one, and it feels like a fresh take. And even just the main sort of relationship dynamic of tension and frustration being between my character and her father, rather than like, a girl and some guy she has a crush on. It just feels fresh. Yeah. And I had so much fun making this pilot. I just am geeked that I'm going to go to work every day and make this a show and get to share it with everybody.
Yeah. And the point that you brought up about, it sounding cliche, but it being a woman writer is so awesome. It's that, the way that they're writing the script is accurate, right? Because it's like when an older guy is writing the voice of a woman, you're like, this isn't really how we talk. But when a woman's writing it, they get it.
Totally. My girlfriends from One Tree Hill and I talk about that all the time. We're like, yeah, girls don't talk to each other the way we had to talk to each other on that show. Yeah. And also don't behave the way we had to behave on that show. Like, come on. That was like some gross older man's fantasy and it was icky.
Yeah.